Okay, well, we are live here, and we are just waiting for everyone else to finish coming in. And if any of you folks are from FIA, we will be taking attendance. So if you are logged on, and if you are a FIA user, then go ahead and chat something in here, and I will make sure that you get accounted for. I see that we've got a few people online, so go ahead and volunteer something on chat, and I will keep it like. But we've got, oh yeah, and we've got Eric. And, oh, look who's here. It's David.
Hey.
Okay. Welcome, Chrissy. All right. And it's Mike. You're not a FIA student, but welcome. Glad you could join us. Thanks for coming. Hi, it's Desiree too. Cool. Thank you very much. All right. Now, just as a repetition, we are not going to be doing anything crazy in the Houdini business. This is strictly for beginners. Well, I should say strictly. I mean, if you want to attend and you just wanted to just, check things out, this is a good time to check things out. And if you happen to know Houdini, this might be a bit repetitious, but, we're always willing to accommodate, and we're always willing to get folks up and going, full speed ahead. Getting ready for Houdini every year. In fact, we used to get the lead instructor from Side Effects. He used to come in every fall, and he would teach the entire cohort. And the entire cohort would have, well, actually all the art students would have to spend the entire weekend going with Houdini. So, you guys are just doing this. If you're just doing this to get out of figure drawing class, then you only have to do it 2 more times after this. Because after that, then going to this Houdini class is entirely optional. But if you were from a few cohorts ago, you would have had to have spent the entire weekend, 3 days. But that really was a crash course. Okay, DL. Who is DL? Does anybody know who DL is?
In the context of what?
Their initials.
Maybe Dylan Lane?
No. Well, Dylan, okay. Okay, I'll put that down and I'll look for DL for the artists. All right.
Do we have an artist like that? No. I don't think so.
I don't think so. Well, who knows? All right. Well,
But he's a programmer.
okay, that's fine. Well, programmers are invited too. I mean, I love having lots of programmers and so forth. In fact, and is Tom coming today?
I just sent him the link, so.
Okay.
Presumably.
Well, he should be coming today. Yes, get lots of programmers here. Ah, it's Pedro here. Okay. Okay. Very good. All right. Now, for those of you who are attending today, you get the advantage of is when you hit problems and you hit snags, immediately raise your hand and say, hey, I got a snag. I can't figure out. We're not going over a lot of stuff today, and that's just so I can spend a lot of time running around putting out fires and so forth. So please, use this to your advantage. Ask lots of questions, and do what you can to make the best of this that you can. And so what I decided to go for today, I was going to go and do some the traditional basic Houdini stuff, and we're going to go and do some of it, and I am taking it from a tutorial, but it's from a tutorial you probably haven't seen before, and it's a really, really simple, simplistic tutorial, and it integrates with UE4. And so I think it will really apply to really the FIA students in particular. And I hope that we can make sure and give you the best learning opportunity possible. Okay. All right, Danny, didn't realize that. Oh yeah, well, welcome anyway. Thank you. Thank you for coming. This is awesome. That's great. Okay, so now if you would, open up Houdini. If you haven't done it also, right, and you should be looking at something that looks like this. Now, what we're looking at here is the desktop. And the desktop here is entirely configurable, just like it is in UE4. And you can set it any way you want, but it has a little bit more permanency. So I like to actually teach in this particular desktop mode right here, where it expands my viewport and my node area. Now, you don't have to look like this in order to get your Houdini stuff is. My suggestion is leave the Houdini desktop exactly the way it looks right now, and you're going to be good to go. If you want to play around with it, go right ahead. But if you want to get back to it and say, oh, I don't know where it was, I can't go back to it. Okay, up here in the upper left-hand corner, well, upper left-hand middle, where it says, where's this, got this pull down. If you want to get back to where you were, press Build. And that is the desktop of where you was. But I'm going to put mine right here. That's because I like to kind of teach you this using this desktop. Right, so what we're going to be doing today involves UE4. And because we're going to be on UE4, we're going to give you a quick introduction of digital assets. And we're going to be passing digital assets back and forth, and we're going to be going into UE4. So in that case, I want you to start getting into the habit of using a project right away. And in order to create a project, let's create a brand new project. If you go in the upper left-hand corner where it says File, hit File, and then drag it all the way down to where it says New Project. Now, the project path, you can set the project path anywhere where you want. You can make it anywhere that you want it to be. It could be just as long as you remember where it is. I suppose you can even put it on your desktop, although you do that at Capstone, I'll strangle you. But if you want to bring up a browser, click on this little icon here, and it brings up a browser, and then you can browse to the place where you want it. And so you're going to create a new project with the new project name, and why don't you just call it like Houdini Building Basics. Any name will do, actually. Anything that you want. Okay, I'm going to use my existing project, so I'm not going to create a brand new one. But if you click Accept, it will go ahead and build the project for you, and then you will automatically be in that project. It's a lot like the projects that you see in mine. But what in this case does is this ties up a bunch of global and environment variables to this local project and so forth. But that's all hidden and stuff that you don't really need to deal with right now. Okay, so I'm going to go into your mode and show you how things look on your mode just for the time being, so there is no confusion, because these first baby steps are minimal. All right, now we're going to go and create our first asset. And we're just going to drop it in here. And so if you look on your tool shelf up on here, if you go ahead and press Grid, and then drag, let go of the button and then drag around here, you'll see that you can put this grid anywhere you want to. Anywhere where you click your mouse, you're going to drop your grid. But if you just don't want to drop it anywhere, just go ahead and hit the Enter key without clicking the left mouse button, and it'll automatically get centered at 0, 0, 0. And let's just suppose that you didn't do that and you put it someplace obtuse, like someplace like over there off in left field. So, well, what am I going to do? Okay, go over here to Translate. And, well, actually, this window that I'm looking at right here, this is your parameter window. Every single asset, every single object you have, or anything that you deal with in Houdini has some kind of parameters associated with it. And in this case, what we're dealing with is this little object that gets created here. This is called the geometry node. And a geometry node is a little bit like a container. it's a little bit like it's a little like a really dumb blueprint in UE4. Because it really doesn't do any logic here unless we put it in there. But these parameters here is where we can control its translate, rotation, scale, and then the pivot, translate, rotate, and the uniform scale are kind of obvious. But in this case, I'm just going to go and type 0, 0, 0 and make sure that my object is all centered up. Okay, and because we created this grid on this, did anyone have any problems either starting the project, creating a project, or dropping down a grid? Everyone okay? All right, boy, really exciting crowd here. Okay, so I can understand, I don't have to go to tech art class, but Houdini, this is like awesome stuff. So we go with size. Okay, we can control the size of the grid that we want here. Why don't you choose 5 and 3, 5 wide and 3 deep. So it should look kind of rectangular. And believe it or not, this is already segmented into rows and columns. If you don't believe me, go ahead, you'll see this little icon right here, this kind of like shaded cube. Press that shaded cube, and you can choose any kind of display mode you want, and choose smooth wire shape. And there you see that this grid has already been partitioned into vertices and polygons. And right now it's got, well, it's a 10 by 10, it's a 10 by 10 grid. And we want to change that so it's 4 by 6. So where it says rows, type in 4, and columns, type in 6. So you should end up looking like this. Okay, now the camera system moves pretty similar in here. Similar to Maya, similar to UE4. If you hit the Alt key and the middle mouse wheel, you can pull out. Okay, could you share your screen to the YouTube stream? Oh, I'm not doing it? Well, that sucks. Oh, God. Thank you very much, Pedro. Here I was blathering and I forgot to share the screen. Sorry about that. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Pedro, because that's why I totally blacked out there. But anyway, we've got this grid on the upper left-hand corner. We dragged this and we dropped it on here, and we adjusted the size so that it is 5 units wide, 3 units deep, and it is we have 4 rows and then 6 columns. All right, good, good, good. Thank you very much for making me aware of that. How embarrassing, I'm blushing right now. You can't tell me because it's dark in here, but I'm blushing. Okay, now, before we get started, before we get moving on, is there anyone that, is anyone here that's having any problems with this? Either here or in the home market. I'm gonna look at this, I'm gonna look at the chat and to see if anything, but regretfully we have to wait for the chat for 30 seconds because we've got a 30-second delay going on here. But any problems getting going in here? Any problems moving around? Oh, as I was saying, you use the middle mouse, Alt in the middle mouse wheel to zoom in and out. Press Alt and the left mouse button to kind of to pan around. Alt and the left or right mouse button will zoom in and out. And suppose that we want to home in on the objects we're working on, to put them center in frame. You could just hit F, like it is, or I'm sorry, Shift F. Not Shift F, Spacebar F, and that'll do the same. Bless you. But if you want, there are some other alternatives. I believe Shift Bar H will do the same, but it will orient your entire view to the default Houdini environment. And is there Alt G? Does that do too? Home selected. Yeah, that homes it as well. So that is a way of homing your camera, a lot like UE4, a lot like Maya. In fact, it's kind of it's kind of a bit of pride is that a lot of UE4 takes its interface style and structure and its overall logic from Houdini. And if you're familiar with the Niagara, then Niagara is really strongly influenced by the Houdini folks. All right, now we've got our plane down. Now, the Houdini window right here is a little bit squirrely. Right now we're in input node, right? Because we get to input and manipulate parameters on it there. But we can't select anything when we're in input mode. If we want to select things, then we would go and press this little arrow key, and then we're in selection mode, and then we can go ahead and select things. But different than Maya is that Houdini it's not about vertex dragging and vertex pulling. Houdini is all about setting up systems that we're going to use to construct things with. So try to abandon, at least for the next few minutes, any thoughts about vertex pulling. Because when you go, it's not that you can't vertex pull in Houdini, it's just that you really don't want to, because then that takes you out of the procedural mentality. And you're probably asking what proceduralism is. Well, let's get things going, and then we'll kind of deal with that issue at the end of class if it comes up again. But needless to say, when you start pulling vertices and start pulling points, that's kind of the opposite of being procedural. Okay, so we're going to lay down a box. And so what we do is to lay down a box, just go ahead and click the box icon, and then if you want, just hit enter, and it'll get centered right at the origin. And so since we dropped that box in here, it put us back into input mode. And so we're inputting into this, so we're out of selection mode. So for the size, go ahead and up here and put 0.1 across the board. So 0.1, leave this at 1, leave y at 1, and then put z at 0.1. So we end up with a kind of like tall, skinny old box. All right. Now we see we have two boxes here in our network, and they both say geometry. That's because those are geometry containers. So this container contains the grid geometry, and this container contains the box geometry. And what we're going to do is we're going to navigate and drop into the box geometry. And we would do that by double-clicking on the node that says box object. And it should end up with something that looks like this. Okay, anyone have any problems with that? If you happen to find yourself in object mode or in the object level, this is called the SOP level. And the reason why it's called the SOP level is because these operations are called surface operations. Because back in the old Prisms days, now that I'm really dating this, probably even before you guys were born, is that before Houdini was called Prisms, and Prisms was a procedural set used for creating models. And these little operators were called SOPs. And so therefore, by legacy, we're in the SOP mode. And if we click on the box node, we see that the same parameters and the parameters that we had used up here in this little interactive window have translated down to here where it says size 0.1, 1, and 0.1 again. And so what we're going to do is we are going to we're going to put a little bit of smarts inside of this object. So if we can kind of like hit Alt and then dolly around, we can see that our box is kind of midway through the plane. And it's centered right at the origin. Now, what if we wanted to tell this box, okay, box, I'm going to put a little bit of smarts into you. I want you to always stand upright so that whenever I increase your length or increase your height, your footprint will always be on the plane. And then any kind of growth will happen at the top. We can do that by modifying the center point of the object. And what we're going to do is we're going to write a very small little program right here, very small. And follow along with me. I'm going to type 0.5, which means half, times, and then what we want is whatever is in this channel right here. And this is my size channel, and this is, corresponds to the X, Y, and Z channels. So I want whatever's in my size Y channel. I want you to move the center point halfway to whatever my Y height is. So type this in, CH, that stands for channel, open parentheses, and then we're going to have to put a string in here, so hit open quotes, and then type size Y. Now hit close quotes and close parenthesis, and hit enter. And you'll see that your object kind of pushed itself up there. Is anyone not able to get that working?
I don't think mine pushed to the top. Mine still seems like it's in the center.
Okay, let's see what you got. Okay, you have a spelling error,
Oh.
and that's why you have the exclamation mark. And there you go. You're missing your closing. You're missing your closing parentheses. That's all good. I love easy questions. Now, if you go to this window, and I think if you grab this controller now, and you pull it up and down, you'll see that it's centered always at the base. And this box will always be situated like that from now on in until something changes. So I'm going to go, and I don't know what that height is, but I'm going to change it back to 1. So that it's going up there. Okay, how are we doing? Am I going too slow? Going too fast?
That's okay.
Is everything okay?
I have a random question.
Yeah.
So like, I was just kind of exploring this.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that when you create the box and you pull it in from the gray tab that it has like the axis, but when you create the box using the tab key, it's shaded out?
What do you mean?
Like, for example, this was the box that was created the way that you showed, right? So
Mhm.
the axis here is actually shown.
Mhm.
This one I just push tab. I don't have it viewed right now. I just push tab and I literally just put box.
Mm-hmm.
Sticks there, but the axis on this one is
Oh.
out.
How about that? I don't know. That's a good question. We ought to ask the Houdini engineers. I don't know why. Okay, that's a good question. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know why it behaves like that. Probably because, like any kind of enterprise where you have more than one person working on a project,
Mhm.
lack of communication.
Oh, okay.
That's probably what the answer is.
Is there any way to go back to input mode, like once?
Yeah, there is. Now, suppose you click this. That's a great question. Thank you. The question is, can we go back to this? Suppose you found yourself in your selection mode. You want to select it. Can you go back into input mode? And the answer is yes. So what you want to do is select the box or select the node that you want to be active at that moment in time. And then you put the cursor inside of the viewport and then hit the enter key. And that puts you back into input mode.
Can you repeat that again?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so suppose you had to go into selection mode because you need to select some things. So we're in selection mode and we're selecting this, these polygons. Okay, they're there. Okay, we're good. But we want to go back into input mode, and we want to use the natural interactive element that is put in here associated with the box. And what is that? That's like the axes, the scale, whether it's a polygon mesh, or what have you. So what you would do is make sure that this box is selected. Put your cursor into the viewport and then hit enter. And you'll go back into the input mode. All right, now what we're gonna do is, since this grid is already partitioned into 3 rows and then 6 columns, or 6 columns and 3 rows, 4 rows actually, ooh. What we're gonna do is we are going to immediately copy this pillar onto every one of those points. So every one of where those points are, we're gonna copy that pillar to. And so, what we're gonna do is, well, I'm gonna go back up to the object level. So I'm in the SOP level right now, and there's a bunch of ways of doing it. You can hit the U key, and that'll get you up there. If you come to this little bar here, you see that the box object is underneath the object layer. If you press object, it takes you back up there. No, one way or the other. This is very, like I said, this is very reminiscent of the state machines inside UE4. You know, there's an influence there. Okay, now select just the box object that we have here, and make sure that nothing else is selected. And then come up here to where it says modify, and then click on copy to points. And it's going to take you out of input mode and going to put you into selection mode, and then go ahead and then select just anywhere on the grid, click it, and then hit the enter key. And you should see something like this. And you said, hey, wait a second. I thought you said that all the pillars were going to be duplicated to all the points. They are. However, they're not oriented correctly. So does anybody here know what a normal is? Okay, a normal is a vector. But in CGI graphics, normal is probably the most important vector you'll ever need to know. Because if you have a polygon face, you know, a simple triangle, right? Okay, what makes a triangle is because all 3 points of that triangle lie in a plane. If you take the perpendicular to that plane, or such that another vector that's kind of pointed out of that plane that is 90 degrees to everywhere on that plane, that's the normal. And the normal is the most important thing. And the best thing to do is, like, if you had a leather jacket, and you know, you're into the leather and you're like into heavy metal and so forth, so you got one of those cool studs, you know, that had the little arrows on it. Well, if you went and got that little button badger, and then you put one of those little arrow studs on your shoulder, right where the button is, boom, that little arrow would be pointing out at the normal to your shoulder, because it's perpendicular to a little baby polygon that's on your leather jacket. So that's what the normal is. And these normals are not pointed in the right direction. By the way, is there anyone who wasn't able to get this to copy? Okay, yours didn't, Christian. I'll take a look at it.
Well, actually,
I'm sorry?
it actually just crashed as I tried to do it, so let me.
Oh, it crashed. That's not fun. Okay, then in that case, here, let me go and recreate it real quick for you. I'm going to put you ahead. I'm going to delete this. Because I know what this is doing. So, like anything, when working with Houdini, save often. It is not with I love Houdini, it's my favorite software package, but it is not without its faults, and it is fragile just like any other package, so save often.
actually, that's not exactly true. Houdini is not my total favorite package of all time. About 14 years ago, when they had Houdini 4, they, one of the owners of the company decided to go off and start a derivative company of his own, and they called their company Derivative. And so what's this, is 5 and 3? I think so. This is 5 and 3. Oh, well, we can always change it. Oh, and we're gonna copy it.
Still.
There we go. Save it. Okay, you guys going good here? How you guys doing here?
I don't know, my box just kind of vanished and then it's an error, so I was trying to recreate it.
Groovy. Okay, so what we're gonna do here is, what I'm going to do is very much the same. I'm just going to, your box object didn't disappear. It was just merged. And honestly, I don't like doing it this way. This is not like my favorite way of creating things. But it's the easiest, simplest way. And, oh yeah, by the way, can somebody check their grid? And what's the size?
4 by 6.
4 by 6? No, that's the number of rows and columns.
Never mind.
Does somebody know what the size is? Is it 5 by 3? Nobody has the right size?
I can't see it either.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys can't see it. Okay. No. Okay.
We only see the box object.
Oh, okay. Then let me see if we got
Wait,
here.
5 by 3. You can click on it as a little thing.
Yeah, there you go.
It's in the here.
Oh, within the box?
Oh yeah,
It's
box.
in the
Okay.
here with the technical location.
Oh,
Point
okay.
one.
So,
0.1,
yeah, it's better.
and then 0.5 times CH. Size Y. Oops, that's not what I want.
Like the box, you just show off the box, just copy the box. Yeah, really. So that you just have a box, and yeah, and then just modify, copy the points, and then just basically click on.
Okay, there you go.
Move the grid, and then there.
Okay, and so I think I made my grid wrong. I think it's 6 by 4.
You see the dotted click enter.
Hey.
So what the size? Once again, it's 5 by 3.
Yeah.
5 by 3. Okay. Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
All right. Now, does anybody else who wants me to take a look at their stuff? Because we're going to move on. So what Houdini did was it kind of thought for you, and in my humble opinion, I don't like when it thinks for me. I want it to do just what it's supposed to do. What it did was it made the grid disappear, and it moved it to the box object, and it combined them together. And yeah, this is the last that I'm going to do it this way because to me this is very confusing. And so I'm going to show you a little bit more of, it's going to be a little bit more of a hardcore way of doing things, but I never get confused doing it that way. All right, so if we've got these up and going, then what we're going to do to straighten these things out. Okay. We can fix this just by clicking on each of these nodes. Now, if we click on each of these nodes, it shows what that node currently does, but it's kind of like in ghosting. It's kind of like in the history. Like in the history, that's what this box looks like. And in the history, if we click on grid, that's what the grid looked like. And you can see it kind of outlined. And we hit copy to points, this is what the current kind of thing looks. Now, if you see that on any of these nodes, they have a whole bunch of these little chiclets on the side. And these control the display parameters, or the display attributes of every node. And the display attribute I want you to be aware of right now is the far right one, and it's called the blue one. This is called the display flag. The display flag shows what this is. Think of the display flag as, okay, if we were going to render this sucker right now, what would it look like? We've got all these nodes on here. Which node do we want to render? Okay, if we press blue here, it's going to display the blue node here. This is the one that's going to render. If we wanted to render the box, click the blue display and click there. Notice that I've clicked the copy to points, but I put the display box, the display onto box. So that's why box looks whole and the copy to points looks ghost-like. Because ghost-like is currently selected, but I've got the display flag on box. And we can do the same thing here to grid. So there's the old version. We're displaying the old version, but we're selected the copy to points. And so until you get used to it, this can be kind of confusing. So if you ever do get confused, well, where the hell am I looking? I don't know what's being displayed. What you do is just click the node that you want and then make sure to put the display on it. That will always kind of clear some of the confusion, because it's really to start, you think because you select a node, it should display automatically, but that's not how it works. But if we hit copy to points, we can now adjust the parameters of copy to points right up here. And what we want to do is, where it says transform using target point orientations, go ahead and turn that off. And suddenly, all the pillars are really excited to see you. Okay, now go ahead, hit File, Save As. And I'm going to call this Basic Buildings. Yes, I've lost much work because I forgot to save. And Houdini does do auto saves for you automatically. You can control the amount of auto saves, like every 10 minutes, like every 1 minute or something. But until you save it the first time, it's not going to save anything. So make sure to save it the first time. Did you have a question, Kelsey?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, why does this is something I've dealt with in the past, but like, 'cause I know Houdini saves little different things than Maya does. It doesn't necessarily save like a bunch of like different scenes, like one, but then there's the backup folder, which is where the previous saves go. Is that right, or is that like? Okay.
Yeah, sounds exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds exactly right. Yeah, actually, in my humble opinion, the Houdini and the Maya file system is very, very similar. Now, once we start getting into USD, now things start to get a little bit crazy with USD, but we're not going to deal with USD for quite a while yet. So if you want to know more about USD, go to the next Orlando Houdini Users Group meeting, and Emma from Cohort 16 will be explaining what USD is. And USD is probably what you're going to be working in within 5 years, and they are going to kick FBX out the door. Thank God. Okay, but now you can see that we've got the base for our kind of our little house here, our little building here. But we need a floor, to sit on top of this. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to drop in a grid, but we're not going to drop it in the old way that I kind of showed you. I'm going to go forth and I'm going to show you the gnarly old, grumpy old curmudgeon way. So, if you put your mouse somewhere in the browser here and just hit Tab, hit Tab, it brings up a little menu. And then in that menu, just type in the word box. And you'll see that a box icon does appear at the top. Go ahead and click it, and then just drop it in there. And because I have copy to nodes, copy to points displayed, that's why, but my box is selected. Now because we laid down the box the first time, we're in input node. And so we can go and drag this box around, we can change its size, and we can move it around, we can do whatever we want, you know, until our heart's content. Is anyone having any problems dropping in a box node? Is good? All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to change its scale to something like, I'm going to try to make it look like, I'm going to try to position it so that it sits up on top here, and I'm going to do my best to eyeball it. Oh, I want it to be like this big, I guess, and I can kind of position by moving the points. I'm going to move this around. And blah, 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 blah. I could pull this one around and say, this is kind of good, I guess. I don't know. But I don't know. But what I'm going to do is say, okay, forget all this monkey business of scooting around here. I'm just going to go ahead and type these values in. What I'm looking for is 5.5, 0.05, and 3.5. And make sure that the center is at 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay? So your box should look something like this. Okay, does anyone have any problems with that? Anyone stuck? Going once? Twice? Okay, groovy. Now what we're going to do is we are going to translate this. Now remember when I said that Houdini is not really a point pulling program. You don't really point, you have to put in a command in there or a process to offset the object. Rather than moving the object like pointing and pulling, we're going to append, we're just going to move it. So click on this little button at the bottom of a box and then hit the tab key and then type in the word transform. And then there's a whole bunch of stuff on there. At the top it says transform. Click that. And then I'll go ahead, hit the display on transform. And then we see it's sitting right there on the ground. So what I want to do is just translate this 1 unit in Y. So I'm going to come over here to look at translate. I've got my X, Y, and Z columns. And I'm just going to put 1 in for the Y. And it's going to move up there. Okay. If I put my, click on copy to points, I've got my pillars. I click on transform. I've got my floor. Now let's combine them together. And with Houdini, it's really easy to combine things together. What we're going to do is lay down a merge node. So click on the little bubble at the bottom of copy to points, drag that out, and hit tab, and type merge. And then drag the transform and then knock into the merge. So you have the merge coming in from both directions. And now if we hit the display on merge, we now have the base floor of our building. Okay, anyone not able to get, everyone got the merge going? You guys all got it? You got it, Alex?
Yeah.
Okay, Christian?
Or you?
How about you, Eric?
Yeah, I got it. My floor came out like the transforms were like not.
Well, let's go fix it.
But
Let's see. Well, here. Okay. What we're going
I tried to push it back in place manually, but like when
No,
it was
don't do that.
when it was at
Just
0,
go
0,
like-
0, it was kind of off.
That's okay. We'll go 0, 0, 0. Okay. And so let's see. This is right there. Okay, so it's no problem. It's actually really groovy. That's really awesome. I like the fact that you're playing around here. This is really awesome. And I'm going to show you, oops, we got to this, so I'm going to hit escape. Click on here, just select just this. Okay, it's interpenetrating, and the grid is off, and the boxes are slightly off. Okay, well this box was not centered. So if I go back up to the top here, and it suddenly lines up everything, and then the boxes are all in the right places, and so now with that. I'm going to explain what happened there. So this is actually really cool that Eric accidentally found, and it really demonstrates the non-destructive nature of Houdini. Okay, you guys all cool back there?
Yeah, we're just talking about homework.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Houdini is non-destructive, meaning that you can't destroy anything that has happened in the past, unless you accidentally delete your file, which I'm Mac. Go ahead and hit save. Okay, what Eric had done is he had placed a, I'm sorry.
Tangent, does this have increment save?
Does it have incremental saves? Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
Is there a shortcut for it? Same as mine or?
Oh, that. Oh, well, it does the automatic saves. No, it doesn't do the incremental saves like in that regard.
Okay, no worries, thank you.
Okay, what Eric had done is that he had accidentally, if you go and put the display on the original grid object and hit the display on that, it actually had some transformations on it, which means is that it was not centered, or that it was off here someplace. And so when he hit the display, he says, wait a second, my floor, isn't in the right place. What the hell do I do? Can I move it into the right place? Well, no. Actually, it's really simple, because all you have to do is go back in history, find out that, oh, no worries, just my grid is out of place. It's out of whack. So I'm just going to knock it back to the origin, and then suddenly everything lines up. And so everything in Houdini is backwards traceable to its very root. And then you can work your way and debug yourself forward. And so that's why I said it's not really a point pulling, a vertex pulling program, because Houdini remembers every single step that you do. And it creates a process in order to come up with something. So yeah, actually that was really great. Thanks, Eric. Okay, anyone else have any difficulties here? Okay, so what we're going to do here now is just duplicate this. So we said, okay, that's groovy. So, but let's go ahead and make it like more than one floor. And so what I'm going to do is, I'm going to go to this merge node, I'm going to drag out, I'm going to hit tab, and I'm going to go copy, and I'm going to choose copy and transform. I'm going to put the display flag on my copy node. And we see that there are two copies there. And you're going, oh, okay, I don't see two copies, I only see one. You only see one because the copy itself hasn't been translated. So let's go ahead and put an offset for every copy. And we do that by, I'm just going to type in here for the translate.
How did you make the copy?
I just clicked onto the merge node, click this little bubble, drag it off here, hit tab, and look for copy and transform.
You can type it in, it'll like really pop up. Copy
Okay.
transform, will you hit tab?
Did you find it?
Okay, I got it.
And so I'm going to click on copy again. As we see the total number of copies. And it says translate here. So that means every time it makes one copy, translate that copy a certain amount. Now if you've got monkey fingers and we're just playing around, it's like, okay, well, let's muck with that and just crank on this total number business. Yeah, it just keeps on cranking as much as you want. And this copy, you know, what we have here is a little simple building. Imagine if you had spent 20 hours in ZBrush creating a module of a couple of sides and you wanted it stacked on top of it. Well, all you have to do is load those assets into Houdini, throw a copy stop in there, and just right along. Yeah.
Never mind, I'll see this later.
Okay, Nathan?
So like, if stuff is not symmetrical, Houdini does not help with that.
Doesn't care. Yeah, if it's not symmetrical,
No,
if it's had an offset on it, it's going to propagate that offset.
No, like since we're building same stuff like again, so like if there are pieces which are all different, then that would be great. Then
Well, that's a good point. That's a really good point. This is a real simplistic thing. But then you would probably want to create a language for your building. Like, okay, my base floor looks made up of these blocks. And then it goes with floor B and then floor C have a pattern. And then you would propagate that BC pattern up as high as you want. You see what I'm getting at? And then you could grade up, if you wanted to make the base bigger, which is kind of its own unique, its own unique layer, well then you could put a copy at the bottom of that and then copy it as many times as you want. And so look for patterns and look to propagate and copy those patterns. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because, yeah, you could do one-offs, no problem. But it's even more powerful if you start to look for patterns and then propagate the patterns. So that's a good question, thank you. All right, now this part, hit save. oh, before we hit save. Okay, this is proper Houdini etiquette. And this is what I like to do. I always like to terminate my workflow diagrams with an output node. So I know that this is where I'm supposed to be outputting from. Because it's so easy to press and then the display and leave it there and weird things happen. So I'm going to drag off here, hit tab and look for output. And there's an output node. And I'm going to change the name, I'm going to call it building out. Oh. Okay, anyone have any problems putting in that output node? If you wanted to put a null will work the same thing too. It does the exact same thing. It doesn't do anything. You can't even transform it. Okay, but check this out. You know, as we're following etiquette, I like to make sure that my output node is colored green. You know, green means go. So, with your cursor right in this window, without anything selected, just hit the C key. A little color palette pops up. Click your node, and then choose the color that you want to color it, and it colors that node. Press the C key, and the color palette goes away. Okay, that's fine. But what's really groovy is, yeah, but this shape looks like just the other shape of all the others. I want to change its shape. So press the Z key, and then you get to choose the shape. Okay, I like the little explosion shape because I go, wow, this is my output node. I hit the Z key, and it goes. So, it's not untypical to go into an environment and see the Houdini networks laid out in various colors and various shapes according to desired functionality. In fact, I highly encourage workflows like that because then people come and then they don't have to spend hours and hours reverse engineering your network. They just go right to the colors, they go right to the shapes, they know right where to go. It is so helpful. Click File and Save, please. Or hit Control S if you must. Okay, now we're kind of like running out of room with this inside of the editor. If you hit the scroll wheel, you can zoom in and out. And if you hit the right mouse key or the left mouse key, or the right mouse key, it does the same. The left mouse key Well, actually, the middle mouse key, press down the wheel and it moves it around. So that's how you can navigate around the layer. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to turn this into a digital asset. Digital assets were all the power. What a digital asset is basically a blueprint, but in Houdini. So there's a couple ways of doing this, but I always get it wrong. The way that Houdini says to do it is to just drag select the whole node network so that they're all selected. Come over here where it says assets, and it says new digital asset from selection. I go ahead and pick that, but then I get this little error that says nothing is selected.
Where do we get that
Okay,
I did not get
if you
that.
guys didn't get that error, then play along with me.
Okay. Oh, no.
Okay, where it says where it says operator name, type in basic building. Okay, now Houdini's nodes all have two names. There's the name and the label. When you go around and you do any kind of programming, or you use some strings, or you use some variable names, you use the operator name. However, but when you display it on an interface, then you use the label. The label is the fancy name. The name is the operational name. Okay, where it says save to library, you see this big, wide, huge string. And what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of all of that. So where it says basic building, drag where it says like blah, 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 OTLS. Just drag and get rid of that whole darn thing. So all we do is see slash basicbuildings.hdanc. So what we're going to do is replace this with our project location. So just type in shift $, capital JOB, / HDA. It should look like that. Can everybody see that? Now what this means is $job is the environment variable. Okay, way back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, the operating system that people used to talk to their computers was called Unix. And Houdini is ultimately a Unix program. And so $job, you'd show that to a Unix person, they'd go, oh, okay, cool. They wouldn't have any idea what $job is, but they know exactly what it is. They say, okay, that's the home directory. That's where everything starts from. And so $job is the home directory of where our project is. This is how we created a project at the beginning. HDA is a folder that was created for us when we created our project, and that stands for Houdini Digital Asset. And so we created a little folder in there. So what we're going to do is save it into the folder. Go ahead and click accept. And I always get this error. Did you all get this error? No?
I did.
I do too.
You did? Okay. Okay, for those of you who did not get this error, hold tight for a couple minutes. Because this is what I got to do. I've never been able to figure this out. I mean, go ahead and hit OK and cancel. This is what we're going to do. We're going to do it the hardcore way. If we still have all these nodes selected, that's cool. Look over here on this tool shelf, and there's a little open box, kind of like the UPS guy has just come in and the Google box has just been delivered, and you ripped open his package and say, yay, I got the new roller skates. Okay, click that box. And what that did was it took all the nodes and it put them into a subnetwork. If we want to see what that subnetwork is, go ahead and double click that subnet and it dropped us right in. And then we see our network is just sitting right fine there. If we hit the U key, we go back to our subnetwork. All right, did anyone have any troubles getting the subnetwork? You doing good, Emmanuel?
Yes.
Did you get it, Ashley?
Mhm.
All right. How about you, Eric?
I actually got it this time.
Woohoo!
Actually,
All right.
Did you say accept it?
Yeah. I told you to hold tight because we're getting there.
Okay, cool. Let's do it. What do we do?
Yeah. If you guys did it right, I did it wrong. I did it wrong.
Okay, I'll just stay here.
But just hold on for a couple. We're gonna catch up to you.
It created a subnet automatically for us.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. Yes. It does all this, but we're gonna do it by hand. And so really, what this is, it's just a macro. It's a function. It's a fast key for it. Do it by hand here. So let's go ahead and then right-click where it says subnet, and then the little menu pops up and go create digital asset. And then we see the same thing pop up again. And for this, the operator name, I'm just going to call it basic building. And for my label, I'm going to put a string here. And I'm going to replace this whole thing by my dollar job. Oops. Dollar $JOB/HDA. Okay, for those of you who did it wrong, just like me, is everyone else to this point? Go ahead and hit accept. It's going to think for a little bit, and then this window should pop up. This is your digital asset type properties window, and this is the window we're going to use to program our digital asset. And don't freak out when I said program. It's going to be even less. It's going to be even more painless than creating your first blueprint. So, in fact, it's so painless. Go ahead and hit accept. And make it go away. Okay, whenever you click accept on a digital asset, that digital asset gets saved to disk. So it's up to date for you. But if you are so neurotic, like myself, and you really want to make sure it happens, right-click on the subnet and say Save Node Type. And then you can just go ahead and save it. Okay, go ahead and save your project. Hit save. All right. Minimize Houdini just by hitting the minimize button up here. Don't close it. And then open up a UE4 session. So open up a third-person UE4 project anywhere. Now, if life is good and JR did what he was supposed to, they're going to talk to each other automatically. And the way that they're going to talk with each other is a critter called Houdini Engine. And Houdini Engine is not really an engine. It's really just an API that is dynamic, which means that it allows two programs to talk to each other and use the same C++ library. Okay, all that computer science gobbledygook that I just spewed forth is irrelevant. But just know that Houdini Engine allows two programs to talk to each other. Now, if you didn't want to talk to UE4, we can make it talk to Unity, or we can make it talk to Maya, or we can talk to Studio Max, 3D Max. But it's really all the same. We've got Houdini Engine is the interface that talks to these other programs, but the digital asset that we just created, that always stays the same. So that means we could create this little and then take it into Maya, and it will behave exactly the same way. Okay. Raise your hand if you're still loading up your UE4 project. Oh, you got it all going. Okay, I don't see any hands. Okay, wicked. All right. Oh, you gotta go? You okay, Oz?
Oh yeah, I was saying it's a lot easier than in common today.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, that was terrible. I felt bad for Hez. You know, like, he was working hard. And just things weren't going right for him. He's doing a good job maintaining his cool, but I could just see the thermometer rising. All right, go ahead and create a new folder in here and call it Happy. H-A-P-Y. H-A-P-I. Happy, yay! That stands for Houdini API. Thrilling, huh? Okay. Now, drop into Happy. Now, if you want, in a file browser, navigate to your, I'm sorry? David? Yeah, go grab a file browser someplace, and then navigate to your Houdini project. And where's my project? Oh yeah, it's here. And you'll see that your project looks something like this. It says ABC, audio, backup, basic buildings, and you have your basic buildings, HIP and C, that's your folder. I mean, that's your project. Now, I just happen to embed my UE4 project right within it also. So please ignore that, that's just where I saved it. But if we double click HDA, there is our digital asset called Basic Building. Go ahead and drag Basic Building and then drop it right into the content browser of UE4. Okay? Now here's the moment of, if we finish today's session early, or do we dance around a little bit like drunken punk rockers?
Yeah, it says failed to import.
Okay, so grab your basic building and drag it onto the level, and hopefully this happens.
It says failed to import, it doesn't recognize the
What
extension.
does mine look like?
I'm sorry?
Is yours like all jacked up too? Because mine looks like, yeah, mine looks like yours. It looks like, oh no, now it's normal, it just takes a second.
Okay,
Yeah.
well that's because,
Mine did what yours did.
okay, Houdini Engine's not installed on your computer.
Wait, what happened?
JR didn't do what he was supposed to on yours.
Oh, okay.
I'm having the same error.
I'd say, and it's not on yours either. Did you guys change versions of Houdini or something?
Oh, this is,
No.
not really.
Okay, it's just you guys? Okay, follow along the best that you can. Because what we're gonna have to do is kind of a pain in the ass. Because what we have to do is, oh, okay, this is what you have to do. In order to get Houdini Engine to work, all you have to do is go into the settings, uninstall Houdini, and then reinstall it, and it'll work. Okay, so what happens is that you must have reinstalled Houdini and not installed Houdini Engine. And so when it was uninstalled, it got rid of your installation inside of the UE4 folders. And so forth. If you need help, stick around after class, I'll get you going, okay? So follow along the best that you can, I apologize. Okay, that's nice. And you can see that you can move the asset around here, just like any other asset that you brought into UE4. But it's kind of small. Like if our guy is gonna run around inside of this building, you know, he might need to be a bit bigger. So we could go into our object and then go to scale and then like pump it up to maybe like 10 times. And wow, that's really big. So how about 5? No, that's a little bit better. That's still kind of big. How about 3? All right, that's better. Yeah, you can run around in that. 3 is fine. Oops. All right. Okay, well that's fine, but it's kind of a pain in the ass having to dial that in like that, you know, kind of type it in and that. So go ahead and type that back to 1. So it goes back to size. There's something that we can do really quick to fix that. Okay, return back to, you'll bring back Houdini. And what I want to try to do is, okay, drop into the subnet. So double click where it says subnet and go right in there. And so what I want to do is put in a normal after this. I don't like Houdini, it's weird. You will actually, this is a UE4 thing. If UE4 receives geometry that doesn't have normals on it, it won't render correctly. Let me see if this is, let me see if I'm bullshitting you or not. Click on this and build the lighting. And if I think what's going to happen, your building should turn black. Yep, it went dark.
Yes.
Okay, the reason why it's dark, and I actually spent 4 hours one morning my summer figuring, why is my damn geometry always coming into UE4 dark, my build? It took me 4 hours to figure this out. But it's because you don't have any normals on there. So let's go ahead and put normals on your thing. So right after the copy, drag off a node right off here, off copy, hit tab, and just type in normal. Click on normal and drop in a normal node. And then just drag the normal node and insert it in between copy and building out. So that's one of the nice things about Houdini is that you can always insert nodes anytime into the chain whenever, and it's not going to disrupt anything. It's going to change things around, but it's not going to change anything.
So it adds like a wireframe to.
Oh yeah, well actually it's just a visual display of what's going on. It's because we have building out display. Actually, if you click on someplace abstractly, it gets rid of the wireframe. It's just a visual indication
Gotcha.
that it has normals. All right. Does anyone have any problems putting that normal in? Okay, go back up a level. So hit U and go back up a level. What we're going to do is we're going to go into the type properties, right click, and then go all the way down to the bottom where it says type properties. It gives us the menu here. And make the window a little bit smaller because we're going to want more than one menu on here. And then click on the Parameters tab. Okay, right now, this middle column shows you which parameters are currently exposed. And we look up right here into this. This is supposed to show the parameters, but we don't see anything. It's got nothing in here, so there's nothing going on here. So let's go ahead and change that. So let's double click on the subnet, go into our digital asset. Oh, yeah, now I know I wanted it to do. Yeah, dopey me. All right, so we have normal there. Okay, I forgot to put something in here. So I forgot to put in a transform node. And so I want to just move these two nodes down just a little bit. I want to drag off this copy hit tab, and type transform, and just plug that right in there. Now it's not doing anything. This transform didn't do anything. We haven't told it to do anything. But what we are going to do with it is we're going to grab, now with transform selected, we're going to grab the uniform scale parameter that's for it right here. Just go ahead and click that parameter, and a little gray box will come up over it. Drag it and drop it right underneath root. And now this parameter has now been exposed to us to use procedurally. Okay, but its local name is scale and the label is uniform scale. Okay, that's fine. I think that'll work. Now the other thing that I want to do is, okay, we've got something now. Because this transform is at the bottom of the chain, what's this going to do when you hit this scale button? It's going to cause the whole building to scale. Because it's at the bottom, because that means everything that's happened above, leave above. But when it all comes down to the funnel, take the result, and then scale it. And then it's going to scale it. And we can do that to the copies as well. So click on the copy SOP, and where it says total number, click that and drag it under root. And so it has a name of NCY, that's for number of copies. And where the label it says total number, change that so it's called number floors. Now if you would, go ahead and hit accept. Doing that will save the digital asset and make the type properties window go away. Okay. Did anyone have any problems with that? Anyone stop? I think you guys are catching on to it. All right, go back into UE4. Now make sure that your basic building object that we dragged in here has been selected. Now there should be, if you go into the details for that object, there should be a little area called Houdini Asset. Go ahead and open that. And there should be 4 things. Look for cooking actions. And then click the Rebuild Asset. Okay. Building got white. Why did the building go white? David, can you tell me why?
It has normals.
It has normals now, exactly. So it's been updated automatically. Now, you guessed it. If you look above Houdini Asset, you see Houdini Parameters. Now you see uniform scale and number of floors. Okay, go ahead and put uniform scale and drag it and make it bigger. Something like 3.
Never mind cooking actions.
I'm sorry?
Oh, wait, never mind. Build asset? Rebuild asset?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
so
I
rebuild
found
asset.
it.
Yeah.
I typed in cooking like 6 times, but never found
Oh,
it.
yeah, okay.
All good.
And so you click uniform scale and move it, and it gets bigger automatically. And we can scale it as much as we want dynamically. And you know what's next. Go ahead and hit number of floors, and then we can dial in the number of floors we want.
So what if mine gets more floors but it doesn't get bigger?
Oh, well, that means we didn't hook up your scale thing correctly.
Okay.
Yeah, in fact, I'll go ahead and fix it real quick. Okay. So, yeah, that's scale. Okay, that's right. All right. So, that's right. Type properties. Scale. That's right. That's right. That's right. Makes sense. Okay. before we go asset. Okay.
Makes sense.
Okay, something obvious is going on here that I'm not seeing. Does this work? Okay, that works. Strange. We'll have to get back to that.
Okay.
We'll get back to that. I don't know why. Something is amiss there. Something there. But it'll probably take us 5 minutes just to run through all the options.
Okay.
Other than Alex having problems with that, Nathan and Emmanuel are just gonna have to watch. The class is getting smaller. Okay, so you can now see that any parameter that you can manipulate inside of Houdini can then be exposed to the digital asset. And then when you drop the digital asset into Houdini engine, it will be live acting. And so suddenly your asset is now live within the context of your game environment. And then you can use the asset exactly as is. Okay? Now if we hit play, now Alex, you can do this too. Our guy will like skank around here, but he's like Superman or like a ghost, and he kind of like goes through all the geometry. All right, we can't have him just running through the geometry. And there's a bunch of ways that we can get around to this, and over the weeks I'll show you various ways what we could do about this. But if you click on basic building, we're going to take a shortcut. Look to where it says Houdini generated static mesh settings. So if we click that, and then we look at where it says collision complexity. If you press that instead of project default, say use complex collision as simple. What that does is it converts the geometry, whatever it is, and it converts it into a simple collision geometry. Now when we hit play, bonk, bonk, he bounces off like a pachinko machine. Now there are ways that you can play with collisions, and for optimization purposes you might want to hand manipulate the collision volumes. And I'll show you how to do that in a couple weeks. But let's get walk out of the way first, and then we can learn to run later. Okay, so here we are running around, but we've got no way to run around up on the levels of our building. So we have to go ahead and fix that. So let's go back to Houdini. And Alex, you can follow along too. This should work just the same. And then look for where the box 2 node, way up there. This is the original node. This is the original floor. You know, if we click on the display floor, this is the original floor that we started off way in the earlier part of the session. We're going to change its size. Well, actually, no, I lied. We're going to change things up a bit. You see the primitive type here? It's currently a polygon. What we want to do is change this to a polygon mesh. And you see what this did is it kind of subdivided it into something that works real kind of convenient like. And then where it says the axis divisions, it's 4 by 4 by 4, because really this is a box and it's 4 units by 4 units by 4 units, so it's like 16 units. We want to change this proportion. We want to go 6 by 2 by 4. So in other words, it's now 6 units wide, 4 units deep, and 2 units high. Okay, everyone with me so far? All right. So,
Should this be working for us as well?
I'm sorry?
Should this be working for me and my manager?
Oh, yes, yes,
Well,
this is should.
Because the axis divisions option is not like.
Okay, change your primitive type to polygon mesh. Yeah, so Emmanuel, you should be following this. Mm-hmm. Okay, now what I want you to do is click on your building output, but leave, now let's see, we do this here. Okay, shift the object, so there's pick primitives. Okay, oh, so let's do this right after the transform, yeah. Okay, so click on the transform 1 underneath it and then hit the display. So you see that our plane is right there, right in front of us. And so remember how I said that Houdini's not really a vertex pulling program? Well, I sort of lied, you can. And that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to go pull some vertices. But you got to do it a little different way. Yeah.
I don't see wireframe in mind. Like I'm selecting transform 1. But
Oh, did you select it and put the display node on it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's still plain.
Well, that's right.
That's fine.
Oh, but did you change this to box 2? You need to change this to. What is that? Did I say polygon mesh?
Yep.
Okay.
So is it like the view?
And no, it should be fine. Let's see. Where is it showing? Okay.
Ah, there you go. Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go and pick some primitives. Okay, select the little arrow to put us into primitive selection mode, or to the selection mode. And these 3 boxes up here are going to control what we can select. And so what I want is this middle button. If we left mouse click it, hold it down, and these are all the things that we can choose. So instead of points or edges, I want to choose primitives. I'm going to click that, and now it'll click on primitives. Now with this arrow selected, go ahead and now pick this little corner here. You see it's really not this corner, but this little corner, this little itty bitty corner, this front face. Just that corner. Okay, anyone, I mean this is kind of like a little squirrely. Is anyone having problems with this? Okay, now just hit tab and click and type in poly extrude. Polybevel, poly extrude. There it is. It's about kind of a third down that list. And you'll see that a little lever pops up there. If you go ahead and grab that little red bar and drag it, you can pull this face out a certain amount. And we want to pull it so it's about 1.
And then volume.
Oops.
Volume equal.
Yeah, look for the poly extrude node. Okay. Yeah, you need help finding that thing?
I just missed, okay, cool, and then drag that.
Okay.
Oh, awesome, great, thank you.
And so it's got that red bar. You can drag that red bar anywhere you want. And you see you've got other parameters you could do. This is called the distance. And so we're manipulating the distance here. The inset, well, you could play around with this a little bit, and but after you get done playing, put it back to 0. And the divisions, leave it 1. But you play with the division, you can figure out what it's doing here. All right. Now press the arrow key again. And that little bar goes away. Now this time select the inside face here that's in the inside of this corner right here. This little inside face. Select that face. And now hit Tab. And then type in poly extrude again. Okay, now we could pull this bar, but we're going to do something a little bit different. Okay, we've got the parameters for this poly extrude node. What we're going to do here is change the type of extrusion here. So where go down, and it might have to move your window a little bit, where it says the extrusion tab, extrusion tab. Thank you. Click on Transform Extrusion Front. Click that. And now the whole, and that means the whole transform jack appears onto it. That means we can now put this anywhere we want now. And if we wanted to rotate it, we could rotate it. And so what we want to do is put it right about at ground level. So the translate should be like somewhere around 1, because we know we translated it. We translated the floor 1 unit high, so we're going to drop the floor 1 unit down. And the Z should be something like 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a ramp for our character to run up. So something like 2 up here. And we can control, you can fine tune these numbers and just type them in right here in the translate and the rotate. Okay, anyone have any difficulties with that? All right. We've got that going. Now what that did, if you expand on this little network a little bit, it inserted those poly extrude nodes for us. It snuck them in there. So that means if we go and press the building output node and put the display on that, it propagates it through. And anything that we change here afterward is going to do this. Now suppose that once we did this, we realized, okay, we need to go and adjust this a little bit, because it looks like, it's not with it. But if we still have this last poly extrude selected, we can go and move it and select it how we want it to behave here. Okay, that's cool. And I forgot to do one more thing. Okay, with it, what we said, okay, we're displaying the building out, but we've got poly extrude selected, right? So we're working with poly extrude. So what we're going to do is say, okay, this is fine, but we don't have a landing point because we got to make our character like hop from this point to this point. Well, let's put actually just a landing floor here. So click on the select button. Select the front face of this original object. So this is the lower floor. Select that front face and then hit enter. And that's not what I want. So click on poly extrude. I have to go in a little bit closer. Hit escape. So if I go and click this arrow, click this, and then hit enter key. No, that's not what I want. If it's
Won't
50.
you need a new extrude button?
Yes, we're going to need a new extrude, exactly. And then now if we just hit tab, poly extrude, then we should get another thing, as we can see that it does it for every other copy along the way dynamically. And so I want to make it blue. Nice. So it's all aligned. So now when we zoom out, our ramp should sit right there on the floor, and if we wanted to create more ramps, if we wanted to create more ramps, what do we got to do? Well, we'd have to go and change it. We don't change it at the total number anymore.
Can you repeat how you did the last poly extrude?
Yeah, okay. Sure. I'm going to go ahead and people don't do what I'm doing. I'm going to do this for David's sake. Okay. Now make sure that your last poly extrude is selected, and it doesn't have to have this jack on it. But with that, hit the arrow, and then select this lower face. You got that face selected? Now hit tab, poly extrude, and then we get a new bar. And then go ahead and just drag out that bar. And it put mine in the wrong place. Oh, que lástima. Oh well. But it should be something like that. It looks correct. But my note is in the wrong place. Oh shucks. Okay, do you know what my dog does to a ball when it first gets it? You know, puts it in his mouth and goes, well, that's what I'm going to do to this poly extrude now. I'm going to grab it and I'm going to go, and it broke. So it broke, and I say, okay, poly extrude node, let's put you where you're supposed to go. Let's put you in between this last poly extrude and this merge. And put it right back in here. And voila. There it is. Oh, so where did it go? Did poly extrude? Did my poly extrude work? Oh, it did the wrong one. I tell you, these guys. And then poly extrude. There it goes. The nerve. Okay. Now, does everyone should have, if they put on the building out and they put on the display, you should see 2 floors. Okay. Hit the U key, go up a level, right click on this bad boy and say Save Node Type. Go back to UE4, click on your basic building, and then where it says Houdini Asset, Cooking Actions, go to Rebuild Asset. And you'll see that your building now has a ramp on And, oh, let's just, for giggles, let's make it like 6 floors high. Okay. It looks like my guy took a siesta over the weekend. He had a little bit too much baklava, so it's time to go run this off. So he's gonna go hit the ramp. You know, I went to, anyone here, any connection with Texas A&M? They got this cool race there where you run up the stadium ramp.
I've been there a few times.
Yeah, good old Aggie land. Well, they got this race there called the ramp round. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm doing the ramp round. I'm running up the ramp.
There's not much over there.
Chrissy's not working.
Okay, anyone's not working? So David, yours isn't working?
Oh, okay, I spoke shit.
This guy got about the building right here.
And then, oh, okay, it's because it wasn't there before.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't transforming it to the rest of the tree.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's
Okay.
awesome, great.
And then hit up, you, and then save that guy,
Perfect.
and then go view your phone.
Your base right now.
Okay. Okay. We've just wowed our programmers. They don't know how we crank this out so quickly.
Yeah.
But we're our job here is done for the moment. But regretfully, there's a caveat to all this. This isn't real time. This is the Houdini digital asset can't be live in gameplay. It's not live in gameplay. So that means the digital asset, it's not dynamic like this. We can go ahead and play with this asset until we're blue in the face, right? But as soon as we build this project and like distribute it, Houdini engine turns off. So what does that mean? It means the objects that we have, they get frozen in place. We just can't interact with them anymore. So that interactivity is not exposed to the users once we start gameplay. Out of gameplay, it works just fine. So what we have to do is we have to bake out our geometry. Once we're finished, then we all have to bake it out, and then we can bake it out, and then we could, if we wanted to, we could close Houdini engine. We don't have to use it anymore. Now, this is also a consideration. You say like, okay, well then, what happens to the licenses? Because we only have a certain number of Houdini licenses. Every time somebody uses Houdini engine at some time, it consumes a Houdini engine license. So that means if you've got 10 people on your team, and everyone's manipulating the level and going in and building random digital assets dynamically, that means that 10 licenses are checked out. Okay, that could be a problem if you don't know what's going on. But if you know that it's going, you say, oh, okay, that's fine. And so whenever you need to create a dynamic Houdini digital asset, you don't check out an asset. You don't check out a license. And how do you do that? Well, you don't pull a dynamic Houdini or a live Houdini asset out on the level. Instead, what you do is you go to the basic building or the object here, and then where it says baking, instead of cooking assets, you've got 6 options here. You can bake the blueprint, or you can bake the actors, or you can replace with a blueprint and replace with actors. Now, if you bake to actors, you go ahead and press that. Okay, what happened? It didn't look like anything happened there. Go back up to the content, and then you see, there's your object. It's now become an object now. And if you have materials on it and textures and so forth, it would be materials and assets and so forth.
So you can do all that before you bake it. You can add materials and then bake it out. Okay.
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
after you should stop manipulating the live assets.
Yeah, and then what that means is that once that's built, we can go ahead and remove the live asset.
Just by pressing delete makes Houdini that license not,
Yeah, and then it releases the license.
okay.
Yeah, so it's gone, but no problem, we'll just drag the object back in there and replace.
It's okay if it's in your content browser though, right?
Oh yeah, it's in the content browser, you can make all these that you want.
No, what I mean is, like.
Oh yeah, it's, yeah,
license-wise.
if the Houdini digital asset, but this is, okay, now some of you have, when you open up UE4 and you open up certain project, it says, I want Houdini engine, and it's not installed on this machine. And you had to click OK, ignore it. That means you have a digital asset on your project somewhere. It's not being used, so it's not checking out a license. It's just that UE4 wants Houdini engine to be installed, so it's dotting its I's and crossing its T's.
Okay, so it's fine if all your stuff's in the content browser, it won't use the license, just as long as you don't spawn it.
Exactly.
If you do, license is being consumed.
Right, exactly. And now, if we wanted to, I'm just going to pull this back up and throw this little guy in here again. I'm going to change this again, uniform scale about, oh, let's make it really big, 4, super big, and super tall, 11 stories.
That's a lot of running.
Yeah, that's a lot of running. Now, if I wanted to, we could, instead of baking to actors, we could bake to a blueprint. Or what I like is replace with a blueprint. And I think this works. I can't remember if this works or not. It might not. But let's see if we replace with a blueprint. Okay. Then we notice that our building is no longer a Houdini digital asset up here. It's now a UE4 asset. And we said, oh, but where's my digital asset? Oh, there it is. It put it up on the content browser. And it created a blueprint called Basic Building with this crazy ass name. And it built the object all the same. And so now, if we go inside the blueprint, there's our object, and it's being pulled in and being referenced in.
So it saves you stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Any questions? Yeah, Eric.
How like strong are the like modeling tools in it? Like when people are doing this in industry, like are they doing more of the complex modeling and other packages and then bringing it into Houdini and
You ever
using
use
that?
Fusion?
A little bit.
Okay, Fusion was copied from Houdini.
Oh, so it's more like CAD style? Than,
Well, yeah, because you're doing things operationally.
right.
Now, suppose you ended up with going to ZBrush. You got a million polygon model. Can you bring it into Houdini and start doing all this stuff? Yeah, absolutely.
Like really?
Yeah, just run it out FBX or OBJ. Well, OBJ would be fucking huge, but yeah, call it like a BOBJ or B in FBX or something. And it'll go into Houdini, no problem. A million polygons, no problem. Yeah, millions, yeah, no worries. And Nick's gonna hate me for saying this. The retopology thing in Houdini works much better than any other package.
That's music to my ears, Chris. Yeah.
And so it's really super simple to just retopologize it. And you guys got me going now here. I want to demonstrate this.
Yeah, let's do it. Alright.
Okay. Oh yeah, this is another thing. Now that it's a digital asset, I'm gonna hit save, just to make sure that everything's saved. Okay. If I want to lock this thing off, I don't even have to lock it, but I'm going to lock it anyway. Click down here, it says match current definition, and it locks it. What's the difference between a digital asset that's open and one that's locked? Well, when it's locked, the sneaky artist can go inside. You can still manipulate it just the same, and all the controls are still exposed, but when you go in and try to muck with it, it's grayed out. You can't change anything.
So all the other parameters that you dragged out to the root are able to be messed
Yeah, those are the only ones you can mess with now. And so now you've locked sneaky, nosy artists out of your hard work and sneaky designers. And you said, okay, you can't come in. Or they have to know what they're doing in order to come in. Because it's real easy, you just said open for edit.
Yeah, that's
Okay, just delete it. But you say, oh shit, I can't believe I just deleted that. That was just 2 hours of hard work. What the hell am I gonna do? Okay, go ahead, hit tab. Because it's saved, and go over where it says digital assets, and there it is, basic building. It's already set in there.
yeah.
All right, so delete it. All right, so here we go. Let's look at the squad. Let's go at Squidward.
What? Squab.
Yeah, there's Squidward. Okay, we got good old Squidward here. Look at Squidward here.
Wait, where did you?
Don't worry about it. I'm just nutting around. I'm going to show you.
Oh,
It's squab if it makes you feel like that.
squab.
Yeah.
Allow editing of contents. And so I'm going to go in here. And so now here's my squab. And so what is this? Poly. Oh, it's really difficult. Poly reduce. Just shove that one at the end there. And right now the squab is 20,000 points and 20,000 polys. Okay, if we needed to knock it down to maybe about a quarter of that size, or a percentage to keep, let's just say 25%, it still looks pretty good.
That's fast.
Well, I told you it was good.
What? Wait, did it just?
Look at it.
He just verify that.
You just retop with this.
Yeah, I did.
Can you do it again?
Sure. But, okay, it'll hold shape until about maybe to about 12%, and then it's starting to lose shape.
So it's like decimation, except.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But the other way around.
Oh.
It's not like decimation, but it's kind of like reverse decimation. Like I said, it's probably the best subdivider or the LOD maker in the business.
You remesher for retopology.
Uh-huh.
Decimation is like just for like reducing it.
Reduce. So it's the opposite way. Okay.
It's the opposite way, yeah. So we've got this down. It was 20,000, and right now it's at 1,300, and it's still holding the shape pretty good.
And does this require cleanup as well?
That's it.
No, dude, that's
You're done. Export it.
Even if it does, I mean, that's still really
Export it from here.
accurate and
That's it.
fast.
This is great.
That's it.
This is great.
That's it. No more.
Last night I had to run a mail poly retopo on it because I don't have 2020, so that's like an actual feature in it. I slapped it in there. And I'm like, oh, this looks so ugly, but it's fine. So I had to work with it. This, yes.
Yeah,
mine
and so
retopos does kind of-
if you and if you need to hand retopologize everything, recreate the topology, you can hand create and hand draw all the new polygons into it by hand and one by one. It takes a little bit longer, but you have like as much control as you want.
Yeah, Maya has something like that too.
Uh-huh.
The quadro?
Yeah,
Quadro, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, a lot of folks use Houdini for like CAD work. And Houdini is not the tool you use for modeling your hero assets. Yeah, stick with Maya, stick with ZBrush. That's what they're good for. And I would say that Houdini is, is not traditionally the animator's choice at first. But I have worked on many, many, many projects where I created a character and then gave the character to the artist who had never been on Houdini in that morning. And then by that afternoon, they were completing scenes with the character.
Yeah, Frank was telling us that the Houdini integration is nice and like he's looking forward to it.
Yeah, the newest version, 18.5, they got bukus of retopology, retargeting, mocap, and other stuff. I haven't really had a chance to really play with it yet, but it looks cool. Okay, any other questions? Okay, next week, what we're gonna do is we're gonna play with this some more. We're gonna play with a little bit more modeling tools, and we're gonna play with this and build some more buildings. And we're not gonna go into necessarily UE4, but we're gonna show you how you can use things like the poly extrude, very simple, in order to create cities. Really quick. All right, well, thank you very much for joining me today. And for those of you offline, thank you very much for joining in, or online, yeah, whatever. Tune in next week for Houdini Secrets Live, and then we will be going on additional tools, and we'll be going on how to create other buildings procedurally using other tools within the Houdini tool set. Okay, thank you very much, and we will see you next week. Arrivederci.